I got a brother living out nowhere, doing what he likes to do. People making rules, but my brother, he don't care. He's a rebel through and through. The man wants nothing but freedom. Nothing but freedom. My other brother wanna change the world, and naturally he's always right. Marching around with his mouth unfurled, itching for a straight up fight. He says it's all about justice. All about justice. Well, let me tell you what, nothing but freedom leads to nothing but freedom. All about justice makes it all about justice. Freedom only wants to have its own way, and justice says you've got to do what I say. And neither brother's bound to budge, and so they duke it out every blessed day. That's how they threw away freedom and justice. And justice and freedom, both stubborn as a mischief, vinegar and piss, not listening to anything of foolish pride. Them fellas are mistaken if they think they'll cross a lake by paddling the boat to just one side. And nothing but freedom leads to nothing but freedom. And all about justice makes it all about justice. Freedom says it's all about me and mine, and justice never cares to even ask why. They can stand there touching noses for a week, they'll never see eye to eye. That's how they crucify freedom and justice. Justice and freedom. Freedom and justice. Justice and freedom. I got a brother living out nowhere, doing what he likes to do. I'm just like that man, and I swear I'm just like his brother too.
Good morning and welcome to our online worship service. This week has been a difficult one, and this tone of this morning's service will reflect this. We welcome you to ponder with us, a time shared by members, friends, and visitors as a congregation of people, the spirit of First Parish, Unitarian Universalist. We gather to find meaning, to participate in community, and maybe to find some small way to help make our community and our lives a little bit better. This morning, we gather in love with open hearts and minds, endeavoring to create a time and space where all are welcome to bring their whole self, respective beliefs, identities, gladness, and sorrows. I ask you to leave nothing about yourself behind. We love and welcome you just as you are. There's a button available below this window. If you click on it, you will receive this morning's order of worship. So please open it to follow along. This morning's opening reading. Cast your vision here in the middle of the hardest moment, in the turning of the new year. This life with so much worth, saving this fragile faith for the children born now into a world as it is, with the threat of war and whole continents burning, still, while the memory lingers of holidays chaotic and miraculous into this day. Offer the vision you've tried to talk yourself down from, your wildest dream, your audacious aims, the beauty that whispers to you to follow and build and become. For this world coming undone by distraction and greed and fear, this world divided by made-up borders, fake fights, and all that needs forgiveness. Here, stir up your steadfast hope, your resolute clarity of what remains possible. Be generous with your dreaming and brave. All paths to the future are born in this courage of imagination. this willingness to shed, to salvage, to start again, to be this blessing for each other, to be this blessed. Come, let us worship together. This morning we'll do our unison chalice lighting. So please join me in saying our unison chalice lighting this morning, located in that order of worship. Flame, friend of our most ancient ancestors, you burn always in the unique worth of each person, in the imagination, in the turning of the heart to sorrow or joy. Please join us in singing hymn number 169, We Shall Overcome. This morning's reading was offered by the Unitarian Universalist Association on January 8th, 2021. So just this week. It's a bit long, so stay with me. The Unitarian Universalist Association joins leaders across this country in calling for the immediate removal of Donald Trump as U.S. president. We call on the vice president and every cabinet member to invoke the 25th Amendment, and that Congress pursue articles of impeachment for the protection, safety, and stability of our country. President Trump has violated his oath to defend the Constitution, engaged in illegal and in seditious acts, undermined a peaceful transition of power, put the country, its leaders, and people in danger. As a religious institution, we live faithfully our role as a part of the critical fabric of our country's moral conscience. And as Unitarian Universalists, we hold democracy as a central principle for our faith. We are compelled by the events of this week to call these actions what they are: attempts by insurrection to overthrow a duly elected government. This is a time for true accountability and courageous action in pursuit of a more just, equitable, multiracial, and pluralistic democracy. President Trump and other national leaders, including members of Congress, must be held accountable for inciting insurrectionist violence by spreading lies and false claims of election fraud, attempting to usurp the will of the American people. We condemn these treasonous attempts to subvert our democracy, prevent certification of the Electoral College vote. The inevitable result was the unlawful storming of the U.S. Capitol, the endangerment of congressional leaders, staff, law enforcement, and multiple deaths. We call on every member of Congress to act on their swore constitutional allegiance, tell the American people the truth, that the presidential election represented a free and fair election. Despite Donald Trump's attempts to dress up false claims of fraud in a spurious legal cloak, the 2020 election was the largest and most transparent election in history. The outcome of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the next president and vice president of the United States represents the will of the American people. The events witnessed at the Capitol are the predictable outcome of the racism and white supremacy that has been emboldened and given license by the president throughout his term and without consequence. We call on our government to take this attack on our democracy seriously. White supremacist violence is the greatest threat to public safety and our democracy. From the daily news to the warnings of federal intelligence experts, we know that the greatest ongoing domestic threats are from these extremists. We must use this moment as an opportunity for profound reflection and awakening, not just in a momentary outcry, but as a basis for significant and lasting change. Our Unitarian Universalist position is rooted in the values of human dignity, justice, compassion, and democratic principles. We will remain vigilant in our commitment to protect our democracy and the integrity of its principles and the rights of all its people. Please join us in our musical interlude.
Amen.
is hard to believe that only last Sunday I was asking us to create a place of peace for ourselves. And then this week there was an attempted coup on our capital by our own citizens. Talk about shifting gears. But truthfully, if we looked into our heart of hearts, we knew it was coming. We hoped for different, but we knew. I watched in horror at the lengths that people were willing to go to in order to disenfranchise democracy in this country. I could not believe, and yet I expected the calling for violence, the rhetoric of misinformation, the bluster and lengths that the 45th president and his cronies would go to in order to derail the outcome of the election, in order to hang on to power, because it was first and foremost a power grab. I could not believe as I watched the unraveling of those who pushed through the Capitol Police's meager defenses to occupy, threaten, to do harm, and kill. I am thankful there wasn't more death. We have seen this type of behavior at different times all over the world. Insurrections led by leaders who were desperate to remain in power. So I knew that this was always possible, but thought naively that it wouldn't happen here in the United States. We have had a peaceful transfer of power for so long because our democracy and the health of our republic are too precious to crush over something as menial as personal gain. I had a feeling that some drama would happen on Wednesday, but I was shocked that what I thought might be protesters became terrorists, daring to push through barriers in order to gain access with the intention to do harm to the people's property and to those within. The truth be told, this was not the first attempted coup on the Capitol, but a coup incited by the president. Well, honestly, that was a first. A little history. The first attempted coup was in 1814, when during the War of 1812, the British attacked our capital on August 24th, in retaliation for the Americans burning the Canadian capital in York in April 1813. Second attempt to do harm was made on March 1st, 1954, when 4 Puerto Rican nationalists traveling from New York to Washington, 3 men, 1 woman, brought weapons into the visitors gallery above the chamber. Raising the Puerto Rican flag, they then shot and injured 5 representatives gathered on the floor below. More recently, on July 24th, 1998, a gunman with a history of mental illness stormed past a security checkpoint, killing 2 officers and wounding a tourist, trying to get to the office of then Majority Whip Tom DeLay of Texas. He was considered unfit to face trial, was remanded to a psychiatric hospital. There are some reporting the similarities of the insurrection of 1898 that took place in Wilmington, North Carolina, with what happened this week. In Wilmington, a mass riot was carried out by white supremacists, which has gone down in infamy. The Wilmington coup is considered a turning point in post-Reconstruction North Carolina politics. It initiated an era of more severe racial segregation and effective disenfranchisement of African Americans throughout the South, a shift which had been underway since the passage of the new Constitution in Mississippi in 1890, which raised barriers to registration of Black voters. Laura Edwards, who wrote Democracy Betrayed, explains what happened in Wilmington became an affirmation of white supremacy, not just in that one city, but in the South and in the nation as a whole, as it affirmed that invoking whiteness eclipsed the legal citizenship, individual rights, and equal protection under the law that Blacks were guaranteed under the 14th Amendment. What we have seen this week is not about debate, procedure, or voting. It was about how a few individuals who chose to sow misinformation in order to try to destabilize our democracy, topple our right to vote with the ultimate goal of retaining power. It is no surprise that those who participated this week were largely white supremacists, stoked by white supremacist rhetoric. Sitting president's solid base are the KKK, the Proud Boys, those who resonate with the rhetoric of racism and a practice of violence. I'm not sure about you, but I sat glued to the news over the last few days as our representatives endeavored to stay safe, do the job that we sent them to Washington to do. They did their job in the face of lies, insurrection, and violence. My friends, plain and simple, our vote, our commitment to gather peacefully in the face of injustice, and our voice is all that we have to change this country. We vote, we send representatives to Washington, D.C. in good faith that they will do the job honorably, truthfully, and with an unending commitment to this republic. We send them in the hope that they will be kept safe. They were not safe. And even so, putting aside their fear, they continued on and did their constitutional duty. And for this, I respect their fortitude and their commitment. Of course, they are outraged, as well as they should be after what they endured. They should be outraged as colleagues in their midst still endeavor to keep the big lie of voter fraud in play for their own presidential aspirations. Shame on them. In all earnestness, I have had a hard time this week regaining focus in order to write something uplifting and not condemning. Clearly, I am not quite there yet. But I am called to speak the truth, and thus I do. Looking for inspiration during difficult times, I turned to Abraham Lincoln, who embraced reflection in chaos and maintained hope as a means to inspire. I share with you this morning some snippets of his second inaugural speech given on March 4th, 1865. On the occasion corresponding to this 4 years ago, all thoughts were anxiously directed to an impending civil war. All dreaded it. All sought to avert it. While the inaugural address was being delivered from this place, devoted altogether to saving the Union without war, insurgent agents were in the city seeking to destroy it without war, seeking to dissolve the Union and divide effects by negotiation. Both parties deprecated war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish. And the war came. Lincoln went on to speak of slavery in the South and the greed that existed in the institution of slavery, the blood and the lashes from the whip, and how God would ultimately be the judge. I personally resonate with the last paragraph of Lincoln's address in the wake of the violence this week. He explained that with malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wound, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, to achieve and cherish a lasting peace among ourselves and with the world. Lincoln actually crossed out that last line and added instead, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. It was only 41 days later, on the evening of April 14th, that Lincoln was assassinated, while much of the country grieved. After Lincoln's assassination, this colossal undertaking of reconstruction of the United States fell instead to the Democrat Vice President Andrew Johnson, a Southern slave owner and an obstinate bigot. Johnson was an out-and-out white supremacist whose political philosophy, like all Jacksonian Democrats, were absolutist in terms of natural equal rights for white people, essentially white men. So says Adam Smith, professor of U.S. politics and political history at the University of Oxford. It was safer back then, in the late 1800s, to be out as a white supremacist. It was expected in the South, as slavery was their bread and butter. More recently, we can see that this behavior is back in fashion, but I would say that it never really went out of fashion. People of color have always been treated as less than. The benefits and the rules that advance the lives of whites have never done the same for the people of color, who have not had the ability to achieve and excel on a mass scale. Hundreds of years later, in generations past, here we are. We are still facing the systemic reality of racism. I ask us, will we ever learn to do things differently, as Lincoln encouraged, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all the nations? Over this week, I asked a basic question of myself: what if? And frankly, I believe that what if is our theme for this month. It may have been entitled at one point Imagine before this week, but I'm calling it What If now. We have to wonder how things may have been different if our 45th president was a kind, gentle, and balanced person. If he understood the Constitution, the rule of law, expectations of the office. What if? I ask us, is it possible for us to become an Imagineer in this new day of violent unrest? Imagineer, defined by me as a person who looks at the raw materials, the muddle, the chaos in front of us, and are able to see another outcome besides oppression and violence, an outcome that is more compassionate and holistic. How could this week have been different, less deadly, transformative in a positive way? Because right now, many are claiming that it was transformative when citizens of this country chose to become domestic terrorists. They chose to push into the Capitol, overrunning the Capitol Police, wounding and killing, encouraged to fight, to do harm, and they now claim victory, choosing to call themselves patriots. I cannot even stomach the thought. What if? What if Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, or Martin Luther King had lived? We have to wonder how different things might have been. It is believed that if Lincoln had not been assassinated, that he would have steered this country towards a middle path, and that what ensued would have brought the country back together, securing some semblance of tolerance and unity, finding a place of balance. What actually happened became a tug of war where Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's VP, conflicted with a powerful minority known as the Radical Republicans that led to his impeachment, radicals imposing more extreme and punitive measures on the South. Lincoln tended to side with the Republican majority, and if he hadn't been shot, perhaps he would have prevented the alienation of the radicals, hence changing our history. Lincoln's assassination brought hard and punitive times on the South, the repercussions that were felt in places like Wilmington, North Carolina, that are still felt today with regard to civil rights. We can only imagine how things might have been different, to hope and dream of different days, to work now, this week, next month, next year, for more perfect union, to seek compassion, tolerance, and moderation in our elected officials. We have done this since 2016. We have fought hard, held signs, demanded that the truth be told. We have marched peacefully, stood up for justice, unity, and civil rights for all, and we have resisted and persisted. This is the work of being an Imagineer. There is no proof or certainty of the imagined outcome. Imagineers take a chance with their hopes and dreams. We take a chance with our safety. We take a chance that what we work towards will not be realized. And yet we must dream and endeavor to move our mark forward, our line in the sand forward. We look forward to the inauguration on the 20th of January, but do not deceive yourselves that the hard work is over. If we learned anything this week, is that the work is not over. We do need to create a place of peace in our lives and in this country. Violence is not the way. That place that we create must be filled with the right ingredients: compassion, love, inspiration, de-escalation, kindness, and so on. My friends, let us grieve with those families who lost loved ones this week. Let us grieve for our representatives who now must face PTSD. Let us grieve for those sucked in, those are being manipulated by the lies that are being propagated because the truth is not as compelling or to their liking. Howard Zinn, an American historian, philosopher, playwright, political science professor at Boston University, once shared that the most revolutionary act one can engage in is to tell the truth. To tell the truth. Isn't that the starting point for this new day? To tell the truth and to work towards trust. What might that look like? Are we able to do it? Are we able to call others into account who fall away from the practice of truth-telling? Dear ones, what I shared with you last week is still true, that we need to build a place of peace in our lives and operate from there, because we're going to need the strength and energy to face into what is yet to come. We are not the first generation who has faced such difficult times. We are but a moment in a long line of truth seekers and tellers who worked for something better. I can only imagine what Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, and JFK may have felt as they looked out onto our populace, at times inspired and other times feeling defeated. They were our Imagineers, painting a picture of better days, a nation united upon principles that call us to be better. Simple message written upon the base of Our Lady Liberty. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor and the Twin Cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. We are not there yet. At times we are closer, at others further away. But is that not our gold standard? Lady Liberty, holding open the door. Can we imagine what it might be like to work together to be a beacon for all? I encourage us to imagine a better day. Let us work towards that better day and be an Imagineer for equality, freedom, inspired by a hope that propels us towards peaceful action. I ask us not to be downtrodden by what happened this week, but instead to be inspired by the courage of the men and women who'd stayed awake into the wee hours of the night in order to count the votes and accept the result with courage. We need to support them in the work that they have embraced and encourage them to be the change that we need in this country. Together, let us stand up to the bullies, those who endeavor to intimidate, armed with lies. Let us be armed with weapons of tolerance, love, compassion, most importantly, the truth. I know it seems that the dawning is far away, but these are the tools that will help us to ultimately win the day. My dear, dear, dear friends, let us be Imagineers for peace and justice. Let us take a moment in silence and meditation. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
As we lift our voices on this day, many hearts are heavy with despair. How can our lifted voices find a way to bring us one step closer to repair? If a wounded world we wish to heal, we must sing no ordinary song. Make it a cadence relevant and real, its every measure purposeful and strong. Let this song our greatest hopes contain. Well-fed children be its just refrain.
Thank you so much for your continued support. Join me in saying our unison chalice extinguishing this morning. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Good and loving people, our time in worship has come. So I bid you to go in peace, speak your truth in love, and give thanks each and every day. Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the truth lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. There are many routes towards liberation, towards freedom, but the abundance of options does not absolve us of the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. After the postlude, we'll move to our Zoom room where we'll have our coffee hour. You can pick the coffee hour button and it'll take you directly there. We will share our milestones there and announcements as a time set aside for fellowship.
Talking left, talking right, talking far into the night, splitting hair, splitting up, splitting off.
Less and more, rich and poor, what to address, what to ignore. What are we really fighting for?
Persuade, coerce,
Convene, disperse,
accept or curse,
deny, confess,
condemn or bless.
who lives, who dies,
My truth, your lies.
bring in, shut out, what's that all about?
Who gives out retribution and
What
grace?
to keep, what to spend, what to give, and what to lend.
Some have not, some have a lot. Can we learn to share the things we've got?
I see us fighting over what we believe, how to love and how to pray.
We begin with hope and resolve and dreams, and end up fighting over what we believe.
I see us fighting over what we believe, leaving spirits poor and lonely. I want to use my fighting spirit in a different way, instead of fighting over what we believe. I want to wrestle with the angels till the light of dawn. I struggle with my need for pride. I want to take on my tendency to turn my head and grapple with why it feels so hard to gently lay our differences aside.
Day, night, wrong, right, now and inside.
We all believe in justice.
Let's talk about what that looks like.
We believe in compassion.
Let's look at what that really means.
We believe in the holy work of listening to every voice.
Every voice.
we believe, leaving spirits poor and lonely. I want to use my fighting spirit in a different way, instead of fighting over what we believe.
I'm tired of fighting over what we believe.
Don't want no more of fighting over what we believe.
Just say no to fighting over what we believe.
Nothing good can come from fighting over what we believe.
Divide, unite, exclude, invite, day, night, wrong, right, no end in sight.
We all believe in justice,